The moment the dragon defied gravity. The gym smelled of sweat, leather, and determination. The walls echoed with the sound of punches against punching bags, the creaking of skipping ropes, and the low murmur of men testing their limits. Among them, Mike Tyson, then at the height of his ferocity, watched with half-closed eyes a man who moved as if the laws of physics did not apply to him. Bruce Lee. The Jeet Kune Do master danced among the bags, his feet barely touching the ground. Every movement was a promise of speed, every turn a challenge to inertia. Tyson, accustomed to dominating any space with his brutal presence, felt something rare, curiosity mixed with almost reverent respect. How do you do that? The question escaped Tyson's lips before he could contain it. His voice, normally a growl, sounded almost timid. Bruce stopped mid-motion, his defined muscles shining in the spotlight. He smiled, not with arrogance, but with the confidence of someone who knew that the answer was not just in the body, but in the mind. Agility isn't just about leg strength, Mike. It's strength in the mind. He approached, his steps light as those of a feline. Have you ever seen a cat jump? He doesn't think about how he will fall. It just falls. Because he trained every muscle, every instinct, until movement became part of him. Tyson crossed his arms, his biceps tensed. I train like hell. But you look like you're flying. Bruce laughed, a clear sound that cut through the noise of the gym. Training your body is only half of it. The other half is training breathing, balance, awareness of space. He stretched out his hand, as if to touch the air. Imagine that the ground is your enemy. Each step is a decision, where to step, how to distribute the weight, how to use momentum. When you stop fighting the ground and start dancing with it, agility comes naturally. To prove his point, Bruce took a step back, then another, until, in one fluid motion, he leapt into the air, spun, and landed silently, as if the impact had never existed. Tyson let out a low whistle. Damn. Bruce approached again, now with a more serious tone. But it's not just technique, Mike. It's passion. You have to love movement. Love the feeling of challenging your own limits. If you only train out of obligation, your body responds half as much. But you train because you can't live without it. He paused, his dark eyes shining. Then you become the movement. Tyson was silent for a long moment. Then, without warning, he took off his gloves and threw them on the floor. Show me. Bruce smiled, satisfied. First, breathe. Not like a bull, like a man who knows that air is his ally. He placed his hand on Tyson's chest, feeling his breathing quicken. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Slowly. As if time didn't exist. Tyson obeyed, and little by little, his breathing became deeper, more controlled. Bruce then guided him through a series of basic movements, side steps, spins, light jumps, correcting his posture, adjusting his weight. At first, Tyson looked like a bear trying to dance ballet. But as the minutes passed, something changed. His movements became looser, more precise. Now, feel the floor, Bruce murmured. Don't fight him. Use it. Tyson tried. And then, in a moment of pure concentration, he jumped, not with the usual brute force, but with a lightness that surprised even himself. When he landed, there was no crash, just the soft sound of his feet touching the mat. Bruce nodded approvingly. That. Now you are starting to understand. Tyson looked at his own hands, as if they belonged to someone else. I never thought agility was this. Because most people confuse speed with haste, Bruce said, grabbing a towel. But agility is control. It's knowing when to speed up and when to slow down. It's being strong enough to be light. The two stood there, in silence, as the surrounding gym continued its frenetic pace. Tyson knew that day would change something about him, not his strength, not his ferocity, but the way he moved in the world. And Bruce Lee, the man who taught that true power was not in breaking but in flowing, smiled to himself. Because deep down, he knew Tyson didn't need any more lessons. He just needed to remember what he already knew. Final chapter, The Weight of Lightness. The next few days were a blur of sweat and shadows. Tyson would wake up before dawn, his muscles still throbbing from previous sessions, but something about him had changed. It wasn't just the way his feet touched the floor, lightly, almost soundlessly, or how his fists moved with a precision that had previously eluded him. It was something deeper, a stillness he had never known. Bruce watched him from afar, without interfering. I knew Tyson was on the edge between what he was and what he could be. And boundaries, he had taught many times, were not walls but doors. That afternoon, the gym was almost empty. Only one older student, a Muay Thai fighter named Kiet, trained alone on the punching bag. Tyson approached, his hands bandaged, his body still tingling with accumulated energy. Kiet stopped, wiping his face with his forearm. "Want to exchange some blows?" Tyson asked, his voice calmer than it used to be. He had assessed him, then nodded. It wasn't a fight, just light sparring, but Tyson felt the weight of every movement. At first, his punches were quick but uncontrolled. Kiet blocked them with ease, returning them with precision. Tyson stepped back, taking a deep breath. Control. Flow. He closed his eyes for a second, remembering Bruce's words, "Water doesn't fight stone. It surrounds it, wears it down, shapes it." When he opened his eyes, something had changed. It was no longer brute force. It was timing. It was economics. A punch here, a deflection there, a counterattack that flowed as if he already knew the opponent's next move. Kiet frowned in surprise, then smiled. "You look different." Tyson didn't respond. He was too busy feeling the rhythm, the balance, the dance that seemed impossible before. At the end of the week, Bruce called him for a private conversation. The master was sitting on the floor, sharpening a training knife with a stone. He didn't look at Tyson when he entered. "Sit down." Tyson complied, crossing his legs. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of the blade sliding over the stone. "Do you think you learned something here?" Bruce asked finally. Tyson hesitated. I started to understand." Bruce stopped sharpening the knife and twirled it between his fingers, the blade glinting in the dim light. "Understanding is the first step. But knowing is not the same as doing." He looked up. "Tomorrow, you're leaving." Tyson felt a knot in his stomach. I'm not ready." "No one ever is." Bruce put the knife aside. "But you already know enough to continue alone. The rest is practice. And it fails. What if I forget?" Bruce smiled, a smile that carried decades of battle and loss. "You are going. We all forget. But the body remembers. Even when the mind doesn't want to." The next morning, Tyson packed his things in silence. Bruce was waiting for him at the door, with a small package in his hands. "To the road," he said, handing it over. Inside, there was a thin chain with a jade pendant, carved in the shape of a coiled dragon. Tyson recognized it. It was the same one Bruce wore in some old photos. "I can't accept this. It's not a gift. It's a reminder." Bruce touched his own chest, where the pendant used to be. "That strength is not what we carry, but what we leave behind." Tyson closed his hand around the jade, feeling its cool, smooth surface. When he looked up, Bruce had already turned around, heading back to the gym. The following months were a succession of cities, fights and sleepless nights. Tyson returned to the ring, but he was no longer the same. He did not seek victory at any cost. He didn't allow himself to be consumed by anger. He fought with a calmness that irritated his opponents, a precision that disarmed them. One night, in a seedy bar in Las Vegas, a large man taunted him, calling him a coward for not accepting a street challenge. Tyson looked at him, then smiled. "I'm not going to fight you." The man laughed in disbelief. "So that's it? Fear?" Tyson shook his head. No. It's a choice. And then he walked away, leaving the man shouting insults at his back. There was no glory in breaking someone who didn't understand the game. There was no power in winning without purpose. Years later, Tyson was in a small dojo in San Francisco, teaching children to balance on one leg. One of them, a girl of about 10 years old, complained. "This is boring. When will we really fight?" Tyson crouched down in front of her, holding her shoulders gently. Real fighting isn't about punching hard. It's knowing when not to punch. The girl frowned, but something in her eyes shone, perhaps curiosity, perhaps understanding. Tyson smiled. That's how it started. Outside, the rain fell in thin sheets, washing the streets. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the jade on his neck, remembering a man who had taught him that true agility lay not in the feet, but in the soul. And then, as Bruce had done so many years before, he went back to work. Because the world would always need someone who knew when to speed up, and when to slow down. Final chapter, The Weight of Choice. The days dragged by like shadows in the pale winter light. The gym, once a haven of laughter and precise movements, now felt like a minefield. The children, once eager for action, began to divide. Some, like the 10-year-old girl, who Tyson called Little Phoenix, still trained devotedly, absorbing each lesson as if it were the last breath of an ancient secret. Others, however, stayed away. One of them, a boy named Ren, aged 12, with eyes always narrow like blades, started missing training. Tyson saw him once, standing on the corner of the street, talking to men in leather jackets and blank stares. I didn't say anything. Just watched. Until one night, the rain returned, dense, relentless, as if the sky had decided to wash away something no one else wanted to see. Tyson was alone in the gym, arranging the mats, when the door opened with a bang. Ren entered, soaking wet, his fists clenched. Behind him, 3 men, one of them with a scar that cut his lip in 2. The air smelled of alcohol and violence. "Teacher," said Ron, his voice trembling but firm. "They said you won't teach us anymore." Tyson didn't move. He just looked at the boy, as if he could see through him, until the moment doubt began to grow. "Who are they?" The man with the scar laughed, a wet, unpleasant sound. "Us. We know what you do here. Teaching kids to defend themselves is one thing. But filling their heads with philosophy?" He spat on the floor. "That doesn't fill your stomach. And it doesn't pay debt." Tyson felt the jade on his neck burn, as if the weight of that stone was the weight of every choice he had ever made. He knew what came next. He knew that if he raised his fists, he would be breaking the first rule he had been taught, knowing when not to punch. But he also knew that if he didn't, he would be breaking another, the one Bruce had taught him in a dirty alley years ago. Sometimes the only way to stop violence is to stand up to it. "Run," Tyson said, without taking his eyes off the men. "Go home." The boy hesitated. For a second, Tyson thought he was going to comply. But then Ren shook his head, slowly. "No." The man with the scar smiled, showing yellowed teeth. "It saw? Even the kid knows you're wrong." Tyson took a deep breath. And then, with a movement so quick it was barely visible, he grabbed the man's wrist and twisted it, causing him to scream and fall to his knees. The other 2 charged forward, but Tyson was already on the move, using their own momentum against themselves. A kick to the stomach, a blow to the neck, and within seconds, the 3 were on the ground, groaning. Ren watched, eyes wide. Tyson approached him, his breathing still controlled. "Do you understand now?" he asked, his voice low. "Fighting is not about strength. It's about choice. You chose to stay. They chose to attack. I chose to stop." Ren swallowed. "What if they come back?" So, Tyson touched the jade on his neck, "We choose again." The following days were silent. The gym was empty for a week, until one afternoon Little Phoenix appeared at the door, followed by others. Ren was between them, his eyes still marked with shame, but his chin lifted. "Teacher," said the girl, seriously. "We want to train." Tyson smiled. It wasn't a smile of victory, but one of relief. "Then let's train." And so they did. Not with anger, not with fear, but with the clarity of someone who knows that the world is a tough place, and that the only way to survive it is by learning to dance between the blows, knowing when to speed up, and when to slow down. Years later, when Tyson was an old man with gray hair and scars who told stories, he saw Rin teaching a group of children to stand on one leg, laughing as they complained about the difficulty. "This is boring," one of them said, echoing words Tyson had heard before. Rin crouched down in front of her, holding her shoulders gently. "Real fighting isn't about punching hard," he said. "It's knowing when not to punch." Tyson smiled. That's how it started. And so it continued. The weight of lessons. The years passed like a slow river, carrying with them the marks of forgotten battles and silent victories. Ron grew not just in technique, but in wisdom. He learned that true strength lay not in muscles, but in patience. Tyson, in turn, aged like an ancient tree, his deep roots supporting not only himself, but those who had once been like him, lost, angry, searching for something to break. But not everything was peace. One night, when the gym was closed and the lights were off, a man entered through the back door. He was neither a student nor a well-known fighter. He was wearing an expensive suit, but his eyes glowed with the same violence that Tyson recognized in the mirrors of his youth. "I heard about you," said the man, throwing a wad of money on the table. "I want you to train my son." Ron, who was arranging the sandbags, stopped. Tyson didn't move. "We don't train animals," Tyson replied, without looking up. The man laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "My son is not an animal. He is a champion. He just needs someone who knows how to sharpen his claws." Ron crossed his arms. "That's not what we do here." The man took a step forward, his shadow lengthening across the mat. "You don't understand. He's already good. He just needs someone to teach him how to break the rules." Tyson finally looked up. His eyes, once fiery, were now stone cold. "Rules exist for a reason. And they are not meant to be broken. It is to be understood." The man smiled, but there was no joy there. "Then you are no use to me." He left as silently as he entered, but he left something behind, an unspoken promise, a poison that would spread slowly. Weeks later, the man's son showed up at the local tournament. He wasn't a stranger. Ren had seen him before, an arrogant boy who trained in luxury gyms, where technique was replaced by low blows and taunts. But now he was different. Faster. Dirtier. They faced each other in the semifinal. The boy didn't fight, he attacked. Blows to the kidneys, elbows to the neck, knees when the referee wasn't looking. Ren dodged the first, the second, but the third hit him squarely in the stomach, knocking the air out of him. He fell to his knees, tasting blood in his mouth. The audience screamed. The boy smiled. Then something changed. Ron didn't get up immediately. He stayed there, breathing deeply, feeling the pain. And when he finally stood up, it wasn't in anger. It was calm. The boy laughed. "Did you think you were going to win just because you know how to stand on one leg?" Ren didn't respond. Just waited. The next blow came, a straight punch. Ron deflected it with minimal movement, as if he was just brushing a fly out of the way. The boy stumbled, unbalanced. Before he could recover, Ren grabbed him by the arm and, with a smooth turn, knocked him to the mat. Silence. The boy looked at him, confused, furious. "How?" Ren reached out his hand to help him up. "You fight like you're scared. Fear of losing, fear of not being good enough. But the fight is not about that." The boy jerked his hand away. "I don't need your help." Ren nodded. "I know." They didn't speak anymore. The boy lost the final, and Ren won. But the victory did not taste like triumph. Just a lesson some would never learn. Years later, when the gym was already run by Ren, and Tyson was resting in a rocking chair on the porch of his house, a letter arrived. There was no sender, just an address. Ron opened it. "Thank you for not teaching me to break the rules. But I had to learn it myself." Signed, the boy with the expensive suit. Ren folded the letter and put it in his pocket. There was nothing more to say. Outside, children laughed as they tried to stand on one leg, complaining about the difficulty. Ren smiled. That's how it started. And so it continued.